Hi guys, it's Michelle, Deception Bytes, and today is Monday, October 8th, and it's 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, tomorrow has a pretty good chance of being Tuesday, the 9th. Yes, that's right. Okay, now that we've got all that straight, let's jump into Q. Now, we are picking up from where I left off in the last video. However, the last video, which was done October 7th, was missing one video, one post rather, because Q posted it after I had uploaded the video. So we're going to catch up with that one post today, and it would be a doozy. And then we're going to jump into the 8th. That's what we're going to do. That's the plan. And so let's get to it, because there's quite a bit here. Actually, there's a lot of, not so many posts, but there's a lot of weight here. All right. So this is the one from the 7th that we missed. I missed. And it says this, Inspector General Report. Now this is taken from Fox News. It's a little clip out here. And it says 3, Wiener, sick, meaning it's spelled incorrectly. I know probably most of you know what sick means, but it's definitely that this is the way that it was spelled in wherever they got it, but it's a wrong spelling for the name Wiener. Texting a 15-year-old, sexually explicit. Initial analysis of laptop, thousands emails, Hillary Clinton and Foundation, crime against children. Now, this is circled, and since this is from Q, we know that he intends for it to be circled, because that's where he wants us to focus our attention, of course, is the Hillary Clinton Foundation and the crime against children, which we know that there's been crimes against children, but the general public do not know yet. They will. And it's unknown how they're going to respond to that. I hope that they respond to it as we would hope they would. Anyway, now Q is providing us with a place to go here where he's getting this information. And I'm going to take you out there so that you can see it on the page. But this is a meeting between Comey and Coleman on October 4th. Now, I don't know about you, but the name Coleman was a new name to me. I had not heard that name. So I wanted to be sure, okay, who is this person that Comey is meeting with, and what is this all about? What is his job? So I did go ahead and look that up, because I thought if I'm unsure, then I'm pretty sure that some of you, at least some of you are unsure. So just to make sure that we're all going forward on the same page, I wanted to let you know who this person is. So let's go take a look. Now, in 2015, December 1st, 2015, this was released. It was a press release from the FBI, and it says Randall C. Coleman, and that is the name, that's the person that we're dealing with here, named Executive Assistant Director of the Criminal Cyber Response and Services Branch. And who does he answer to? He answers to Director James B. Comey, who of course is not the director now, but was at that time. So Randall C. Coleman is beneath Comey, and he's an underling, and he is the Executive Assistant Director, and that is why they call him EAD Coleman. Because I was wondering, what does EAD stand for? Well, that's what it stands for, Executive Assistant Director. So I just wanted to clear that up before we even get in there, because I don't want anyone to be confused. And here is where Q is getting all of this information. And we're going to go out there and take a look so that we know exactly where Q is getting it from. Now, I am going to search for the page he wants us to be on, which I think is 293, if I'm not mistaken. And it will find it in a second. At least it did last time. Is it 293? I could be wrong too. Let me see here. Want to be sure. 294. All right. Well, I was off by 1. Could have been worse. All right, 294. Take us out. There we go. Here's 294, and we can find exactly, word for word, what Q is talking about. And here is where we are in the Q post, and we're going to go back to Q but I wanted to show you that this is indeed, he's taking it word for word right from this FBI report. Just so we all know. Now we can begin. Okay, page 294. That's where we are, Q. Meeting between Comey and Coleman on October 4th. Yep, that's where we are. Let's go back for a second. Make sure we can go up here to where it starts. Meeting between Comey and Coleman on October 4th. Now this is where we are, and let's go back to Q. Now Q has pulled out from all the stuff from that paragraph. He has pulled out what he wants us to know. Coleman told us that he could not recall this briefing with Comey. Now, these two met on October 4th, and there was some kind of meeting or briefing, and Coleman is saying that he doesn't have any recollection of it. Coleman's notes, which that kind of threw me for a loop there, because I don't know if you guys had this in Canada, but in the States, but growing up in Canada, we had, now they've gone out of business, they're no longer available, but we had what was called Coleman's notes, which was a lot like, Cliff Notes. In the States, it's Cliff Notes, but here it was always Coleman Notes. Anyway, so it just struck me a little odd when I saw Coleman's notes. So Coleman's notes, meaning the notes from Coleman, E.A.D. Coleman, from October 4th contain the following entry. So there obviously was a briefing and a meeting on October 4th because Coleman made some notes about it. And here is number one note that he made was Anthony Weiner. And he spelled the last name wrong because we've got a S-I-C here. And then two, it just says unrelated. And that's probably been redacted because it wasn't related to what we're dealing with here. That would be my supposition. And number three, Weiner, spelled wrong again, texting 15-year-old sexually explicit 926 federal SW iPhone, iPad, laptop, initial analysis of laptop, thousands emails, Hillary Clinton and Foundation, crime against children. So this is right straight from his notes that he took. And down below, Q says, we asked Coleman about these notes, and he told us that given their placement in his notebook, the notes would most likely represent information he was briefed on first thing in the morning by his subordinates in the Criminal Investigative Division. So Coleman had people underneath him as well, but his boss was Comey. So he said these notes probably came from his subordinates when they were briefing him in that morning. But Comey told us that he did not recall the briefing by Coleman reflected in his calendar. We asked Comey if this briefing could have been in the time in early October that he recalled being told about the connection between mid-year and the Weiner investigation. Comey stated, it's possible. This is what is knocking around in the back of my head. But I know the frailty of memory from having done a lot of this work, at least in my memory. At least in my memory, it's much more of an informal than a meeting about it, but it's possible. We showed Coleman's notes from October 4th to Comey. Comey did not recall being briefed on the information contained in the notes. I do not recall. I do not recall. I do not recall. Now underneath, Q says, these people deserve to what? I think Q is wanting to say die. I don't feel real comfortable with that, but let's, that's my thing. These people are sick. We are the cure. Patriots in control. The world will know the truth. Q. So what Q is saying here is that Coleman, an underling of Comey, met, he and Comey met, and these are the things that they discussed. Number one, Anthony Weiner, his texting, Anthony Weiner's texting of explicitly sexual material to a 15-year-old girl, and his laptop contained thousands of emails, some of which contained information about Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation and crimes against children. That's what Coleman's notes say. But Comey is saying, I don't remember that meeting. I don't remember any of this. No, I don't remember. So yeah, that's what Q is wanting to point out to us, that what's wrong with Comey's memory. So let's look here just for a little bit of in-depth look here. Comey's Outlook calendar for October 4 contains an entry for morning briefs from 8:15 a.m. to 9 a.m. that is immediately followed by an entry for meeting with EAD Coleman, Executive Assistant Director, and from 9 to 9:30. So he had a half-hour meeting with his executive assistant director. I think that's what he's called. Is it? Wait. Executive assistant director, yes. All right. I don't know. My memory's starting to go. I'm too young for that. Anyway, let me see here. Now, we were over here. No, we were right here. All right. So Coleman told us that he could not recall this briefing with Comey. Coleman stated that staying behind to brief Comey would be consistent with normal practice, but added that he had not recalled this specific instance. Coleman told us that it would be unusual to have a one-on-one meeting with Comey, and told us someone else would typically be present at these meetings, such as the DD or ADD. While not remembering this meeting, Coleman speculated that this may be a one-on-one meeting with Comey to discuss Coleman's upcoming retirement from the FBI in December 2016. But that would not be consistent with the notes he took, would it? So now I lost my place. Boy, I really lost my place. What was I, 293? 294, something like that? 293? Why did it jump ahead? It's possessed. It's full of the devil. Okay. So we were right here. While not remembering this meeting with Coleman, speculated that this may be a one-on-one meeting with Comey to discuss Coleman's upcoming retirement from the FBI in December 2016. And Coleman told us that he regularly took notes. That's very bad English. In a journal. Coleman notes from October 4th contained the following entry. So these are right straight from his notes, and I know for myself, I found notebooks that I kept actually when I was in that cult that I said, and I had kept notes because I can't remember a lot of it, but I look at my notes and I know, okay, if I took those notes, I'm a very copious note taker. So I know that whatever I've written there was what exactly was happening and what we were doing. I know that it's truth because I know how I take notes. So this person, once he saw his notes, that should have spurred his memory, at least to some extent. And nobody takes notes about fictional things, especially in a professional job in the FBI. You don't just take notes about fictitious happenings. Yeah, you wouldn't have a job for very long if you did that. So obviously his notes, obviously this happened. So Comey told us that he did not recall the briefing by Coleman reflected in his calendar. We asked Comey if this briefing could have been the time earlier in October that he recalled being told about the connection between mid-year and the Wiener investigation. Comey stated, "It's possible, this is what's knocking around in the back of my head, but I know the frailty of memory from having done a lot of this work. At least in my memory, it's much more of an informal than a meeting about it, but it's possible." Now, does that sound like somebody that's hedging? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, I think we can move on from here because I think we've got the gist of exactly what Q is saying and why. So we can move on from this post and go up to today's post. Yippee! We're on today's post. Now, this right here is talking about, but I'm going to go out to it again. I'm not going to play it again because it's the exact same video that we had in yesterday's drops. But it is about, oh, no, that's the wrong link. This is, why did I put that link there? Oh, because this is where we are. Okay, I'm jumping ahead. I don't know. I'm like 2-3 posts ahead. All right. This is the next one, the first post from October 8th today, and it goes to Reuters, and let's see what it says. It says, more, U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo says North Korean leader Kim says he's ready to allow international inspectors to Punggye-ri site. I think that's how you say it. So I would ask all these people that are saying that North Korea is just hedging and they're just kidding and, you know, nothing really happened. They're just kind of placating Trump, but really nothing's happening and North Korea is laughing at us. That is what I have heard around my neck of the woods. I'm not sure what you've heard, but that is what people are saying here. Oh, he didn't really do anything to cause peace with North Korea. They're just saying stuff to placate him. Don't you see that? Why are you so naive? Yeah, right. That's what I get. So, really, I mean, if he still had nuclear weapons, would he allow international inspectors to come and look? I don't think so. That's like, if you're hiding drugs in your house, you don't invite the cops in, right? I mean, I'm not saying that from experience because I've never done drugs, but I'm just saying, if, you know, I mean, just, it's common sense. Alrighty, so there you go. Let's move on from that. And here's the next one. Now, this... here is, this is from, hang on, I may not have gotten the whole post here. Yeah, I think I did. Let me see here. Yep. Okay, hang on. All right, so this is a post from September 23rd that Q is referring to here, and it says, DECLAS of Fisa equals Rod Rosenstein self-incrimination. So once that DECLAS of the Fisa comes out, and I believe with all my heart it's coming out this week. I believe like sooner in the week than later. That's what I believe. Now, I could be wrong. I don't want to hold out false hope, but that is what I firmly believe. So when that comes out, he is going to self-incriminate. So it's not like anybody's going to have to point the finger because the finger's going to be already pointed. And Rod Rosenstein in charge of declassification. So that is a conflict of interest right there because he's the one that's in charge of the declassification, but he knows that once that FISA is declassified, he's going to incriminate himself. So because of the conflict of interest, they brought in Inspector General Horowitz, which makes sense, right? He was tasked with the final review for speed because you know Rosenstein would try to stall as long as possible because, of course, if you know that there's things in there that are going to be pointing the fingers at you, you're going to stall for as long as you can to buy yourself more time. But for speed and because of conflict of interest, they had the Inspector General Horowitz do it, and that is the wise thing to do, in my estimation. And prevent left endanger sources and methods plus Mueller interference narrative. So this was done for a couple reasons because he didn't want the left to endanger the sources, right? You don't want any more sources or people that are going to testify just disappearing, committing suicide by shooting themselves in the head with the wrong arm. Anyway, so you don't want that sort of thing. So that's all been done to do that. It will all come out. It's all going to come out. POTUS will not be baited to fire, and they also want to remove Rod Rosenstein from the DECLAS because they don't want Mueller to know what's going on. They don't want him interfering in the narrative whatsoever. And it said POTUS will not be baited to fire Rod Rosenstein. Why? Because once it's declassified, he's going to be fired anyway. It's like he just fires himself. Now, that's kind of cool if you ask me. UK/Australia plus others must learn the true definition of ally. That's right. They have not acted like an ally of the United States. They've acted as an ally of the deep state, which that's two completely different things. And you and I know it. So Trump is saying, look, they're going to have to learn what a true ally is. You don't interrupt our elections of a duly elected president. They were trying to prevent the election of Donald Trump, but he's who the people wanted. That's not being an ally of the American people. So Rod Rosenstein he's prevented by force from signing new Fisas because they can't trust him. All signers are currently under grand jury. So anyone that has signed a Fisa, those Fisas to, because I think there were 4 of them, if I'm not mistaken, then they're all under grand jury right now, investigation. And they should be, because there was clear Fisa abuse. McCabe memos, New York Times, Rod Rosenstein article prove the rats are panicking. And, Rod Rosenstein said, I'm willing to listen to the president, go in there with a wiretap and prove that he's out of his mind so that we can get him out of there under Amendment 25 because he's not fit to run the country. Well, that's not going to happen, Rod Rosenstein. But the rats are panicking, and 2018 will be glorious. Prepare for Sky is Falling week. Q. Now, that was September 23rd, so that was the last week of September, and then beneath that you've got Q here, October 8th rather, and he says, but of course Anons already knew POTUS would not be baited to fire. Think red line. Q. And remember, they always said, that's the red line. If you cross that, that's the red line. They wanted him to cross it. They wanted him to fire Mueller. They wanted him to fire Sessions. They wanted him to fire Rod Rosenstein. But if he did that, that would be the red line. And that would have been worse than just allowing these people to self-incriminate, right? Because if POTUS had fired them, none of this stuff would come out, and everybody would be pointing at him and saying, he's nuts. He just fires everyone. He's crazy. But this way, they self-incriminate so that when he's fired, it doesn't come back on Donald Trump because they've done it themselves. And this is brilliant. It's brilliant work. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. All right. So let's go up to the next one. And we have this from September 28th, same day that the last one we looked at was from. And Q is putting it up here to remind us again. He said the Democrats' playbook, midterm election. So this is what the narrative is going to be. This is their playbook for the midterm elections. We're going to impeach Justice K. But zero corroborating evidence and all factual witnesses provided by accuser all denied allegations. Should we take control in November? Liberal left lunacy. Bait. It's a bait for liberal left lunacy because that's what they're doing. And Q says these people are evil, sick, and stupid. You are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard. The old guard is disappearing and we're moving towards giving power to the people. Red October. Q. Now, this, hang on one second here. Yes, this is the correct one. Okay, now Q is referring to this that we just read, and he gives us a link to go out to look at. And then beneath it, he says, but of course, Anons already knew the Democrats' playbook regarding Kavanaugh. Think, herd sheep. Think, 2/3 of the Senate vote is required to impeach. And that's impossible. It's impossible because they couldn't even get the votes that they needed to keep him out. So how are they going to get 2/3 of the Senate to vote to impeach him? It doesn't make sense, and it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because there's 2/3 of the Senate isn't Democrat, and there's not enough Republicans that would go against him. So they're never going to get that. It's impossible. So they can flap their jaws all they want. They can flap their jaws until they take off, into the sky. But it'll do nothing. So let's go take a look at the link that Q wants us to look at. All righty. Dems wage war on Kavanaugh. Court. New battles over legitimacy, impeachment, recusal. Now, remember, Q told us, even before Kavanaugh got in, that this is what we could expect once he was in. So, just like clockwork, here it comes, right? Okay, let me close this, and I'm not going to read all of this, but the narrow confirmation of now Justice Brett Kavanaugh over the weekend marked a major political victory for President Trump and the beginning of a new battle for Democrats who are now shifting their message to threaten possible impeachment against the newest High Court justice and question the legitimacy of the Supreme Court itself. After a grueling confirmation fight that included graphic sexual misconduct allegations, which the nominee denied, Kavanaugh was confirmed Saturday on a 50-48 vote. His ceremonial swearing in will be held Monday evening. I thought he was already sworn in. I thought he was already sworn in by, was it Justice Roberts? Maybe, I don't know, maybe I was sniffing glue that day. I don't know, but no, I don't sniff glue. But as he joined the court, replacing retired Justice Anthony Kennedy, prominent Democrats signal the fight over his seat and the court itself will extend well beyond next month's midterms. Wow, they want to impeach him. It's an insult to the American people, Trump said. Monday, still fuming over the confirmation process and predicting Republican candidates would only benefit from the controversy in the midterms, Democrats, though, maintain the fight is energizing their core. We will not stop marching. We will not stop fighting, DNC Chairman Tom Perez said in a statement. They don't get it. The Dems don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get that people are sick to death of their antics. They're sick to death. And all they're doing is pushing more voters towards the side of the Republicans. That's all they're doing. Over the weekend, former Attorney General Eric Holder said the court's legitimacy could be brought into question with the addition of Kavanaugh. Oh, he's such a wiener. With the confirmation of Kavanaugh and the process which led to it and the treatment of Merrick Garland, the legitimacy of the Supreme Court can justifiably be questioned. The court must now prove through its work that it's worthy of the nation's trust, Holder tweeted, referring to former President Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee, whose confirmation process was blocked by Republicans in 2016. Well, I'm glad it was. Anyway, let's go back to Q. And it's interesting, Q told us in advance that that's exactly what they would say. And like clockwork, that's exactly what they said. So they certainly don't change the way they do business. It's like it's the same and you can predict it. It's transparent as glass. All right, let's go up to the next one. Now, here is another article that Q wants us to go out to. And, well, let's go out and look at it first. Then we'll see what he has to say. Okay. I am so full. I'm sitting here ready to burst because today in Canada is Thanksgiving. Now, I think it should be held in November, but because I feel more American and I think that's where it should be. But we celebrate it early. So I am very full today. Anyway, FBI's smoking gun redactions protected political embarrassment, not national security. Now, those of us who have been following Q, which is me and you, we know this. We knew this, right? That they redacted it not because they were afraid of, putting national security in jeopardy. No, they weren't worried about that at all. They were protecting themselves from political embarrassment. And that's exactly what this says. Redactions protected political embarrassment, not national security. To declassify or not to declassify, that is the question when it comes to the FBI's original evidence in the Russia collusion case. The Department of Justice and the FBI have tried to thwart President Trump on releasing the evidence, suggesting it will harm national security, make allies less willing to cooperate, or even leave him vulnerable to accusations that he is trying to obstruct the end of the Russia probe. Before you judge the DOJ and FBI's arguments, which are similar to those offered to stop the release of information in other major episodes of American history, from the Bay of Pigs to 9/11, consider footnote 43 on page 57 of Chapter 3 of the House Intelligence Committee's report earlier this year on Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Until this past week, the footnote really had garnered no public intrigue, in part because the U.S. intelligence community blacked out the vast majority of its verbiage in the name of national security before the report was made public. From the heavy redactions, all one could tell is that the FBI General Counsel, James Baker, met with an unnamed person who provided some information in September 2016 about Russia, email hacking, and a possible link to the Trump campaign. Not a reporter or policymaker would have batted an eyelash over such a revelation. Then, last Wednesday, I broke the story that Baker admitted to Congress in an unclassified setting, in an unclassified setting, that he had met with a top lawyer at the firm representing the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and received allegations from that lawyer about Russia, Trump, and possible hacking. It was the same DNC, along with Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, that funded the unverified salacious dossier by a British intel operative, Christopher Steele, that became a central piece of evidence used to justify the FBI surveillance of the Trump campaign in the final days of the election. And it was the same law firm that made the payment for the dossier research so those could be disguised in campaign spending reports to avoid the disclosure of the actual beneficiaries of the research, which were Clinton and the DNC. And it turns out, the same meeting that was so heavily censored by the intel agencies from footnote 43 in the House report, treated, in other words, as some big national security secret, which makes this so extraordinary, is that the FBI and DOJ would have Americans believe that a contact with a lawyer for a political party during the middle of the election is somehow a matter of national security that should be hidden from the public. Well, that argument was proven to be a lie by the very way the interview with Baker played out last Wednesday on Capitol Hill. Baker was not interviewed in a SCIF, which is a sensitive, compartmented information facility routinely used to discuss super secret, highly sensitive information. There was no claim of classification over any information he provided Congress that day. So we now say that with some authority, hang on here, So we now say with some authority that the earlier redaction in footnote 43 was done in the name of a national security concern that did not exist, which raises the question of what the real reason was that it was hidden from public view. I think the answer can be found in an earlier set of documents that DOJ and FBI fought hard to keep secret. The messages of those FBI lovebirds, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. What we learned from their messages was the investigation was a whole lot more about politics and a whole lot less about verified intelligence. There is now a concrete storyline backed by irrefutable evidence. The FBI allowed itself to take political opposition research created by one party to defeat another in an election, treated it like actionable intelligence, presented it to the court as substantiated, and then used it to justify spying on an advisor of the campaign of that party's duly chosen nominee for president in the final days of a presidential election. And when, 9 months later, the FBI could not prove the allegation of collusion between Trump and Russia, unverified evidence was leaked to the media to try to sustain public support for a continued investigation. That means the redaction of footnote 43 had more to do with political embarrassment than with national security, and that should concern us all. The founding fathers intended government to be open and transparent except when national security was at risk. They never intended national security to be used to hide old-fashioned politics. So, Mr. President, when you weigh those DOJ, FBI arguments against declassification, please don't forget the ruse of the redaction that was footnote 43. That was a very extraordinarily well-written article. Very well written. And succinctly puts all this stuff, in a nutshell, I think. So that is why I read the entire thing. It was very well written and it was well worth the read, I believe. Anyway, let's go on. 'Cause there's more. No, really? Yes, there's more. All right. Let's go and find out what it is. Okay, here's the next one. Now, this contains a post from, let me see the date, January 7th. And let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you. It says, U.S. taxpayers are paying for it all. Paris Accord equals scam. Trillions. Red Cross equals scam. Billions. Foreign aid equals scam. Trillions. War equals scam. Trillions. On and on. Who audits where the money actually goes? Who actually receives the money? The U.S. taxpayer is funding the very people we are engaged in taking down. Slush funds everywhere. Think GS, George Soros that is, pays for Antifa out of his own pocket? Of course he doesn't. He's not paying for Antifa out of his own pocket. No, he's, laundering money, no doubt. And then it says the hole is deep. Feel sick yet? Q. Now, that was from January of this year rather. And let's go to this link he's left for us. And then underneath he says, but of course, Anons already knew this. Knowledge is power. Q. So let's go see what Q is telling us that we already knew. And here is this by Tom Fitton, and he is the president of Judicial Watch. And he says, well, let's just listen to what he has to say here, if I can.
A lot of these protests, George Soros, right? George Soros, a super wealthy individual, hardcore leftist, spends his money on groups to advance his agenda both here and abroad. I guess he has a First Amendment right to do that. We can reject what he does as long as he follows the rules. He has a right to do it. Well, does he need your tax dollars to do that type of work? Of course he doesn't. Well, don't you know it? at least under the Obama administration, they were giving him money, his open society organizations abroad. And so Soros is very active abroad. He was active in Central America. He's active in Central Europe. He's active all over the world, trying to impose his transnational socialist agenda on other countries. In Hungary, they resisted strongly and pushed back against the Soros entities that were placed there. But other countries like Macedonia and Albania, they're having a much more difficult time. And they're not helped by USAID and the State Department working hand in glove with Soros in those countries. Specifically in Albania, we already uncovered through Freedom of Information Act litigation that $9 million, your tax dollars, during the Obama administration went to help the Open Society operation, the Soros operation in Albania. This man's a billionaire. He doesn't need your tax dollars. But it's that relationship, as far as the Obama administration was concerned, because this money, I think, was paid to him in 2016, just having the dollar go out the door to Soros gives Soros and his cronies there who work in his organizations the excuse to work hand in glove with the government because they've got that financial connection. So that's why it's important, A, that it be exposed, and of course, B, stopped. But secondly, we've received new documents as a result of, again, a lawsuit. Judicial Watch, a lot of people talk about Soros. A lot of people say Soros is terrible, Soros does this, Soros does that. Well, Judicial Watch is in court trying to get information about what exactly your tax dollars are being used for with respect to Soros, and trying to figure out what his influence is, especially any inappropriate influence in our government decision-making and our foreign policy abroad. And these new sets of documents make it look like the State Department outsourced its foreign policy in Albania to the Soros operation. The documents show that Soros's groups were invited into an election rollout event at the U.S. Embassy in 2015. His top guy in Albania, which I guess isn't the end of the world, but it shows you just how close they were.
So I'm not going to play all of this, but the part that's important for us to realize is that now they have documentation showing that the Soros operation and the State Department, which was Hillary, were working hand in glove with tax dollars. Yeah, our tax dollars. Right. And so Judicial Watch has been doing this investigation and doing like a wonderful job. I think that this organization is right on, and I actually rely on their information a lot because I trust them. And obviously, I don't think Q would send us out to them if it was not a trusted source. So there you go. If you want to, they have a website as well, Judicial Watch, and they're on Twitter and I think on Instagram as well. I'm not on Instagram, but anyway, let's go back to Q. And Q is saying, but of course, Anons already knew this. Yeah, we already knew that George Soros was funding stuff, but of course it wasn't his money that he's funding it with. It's ours. Right. So that should make us even more angry. Not so much that he's interfering because, that should make us angry too. But it would be one thing if he was interfering with his own money, but he's interfering in our affairs with our money, our tax money that should be going to the vets. It should be going towards education. It should be going towards infrastructure. There's, I don't even have to say this, that the infrastructure for America is getting very old. Some of the roads need to be repaired, bridges need to be repaired, all that. The education needs more funding, our vets need more funding. So, yeah, there's lots of places where those tax dollars could go. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. And it's this. Now, this is the one that I was referring to earlier when I said that I had skipped ahead. This is the one. And Q has said, now I'm going to show it to you just so you know what I'm talking about here. You'll recall it from our drop from yesterday, I'm quite sure. Now, it is the one where Devin Nunes is speaking on the Russia probe and Fisa abuse, and it's 8 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it all because we covered this in the last video. And he had great things to say, as always, but it's nothing new. There's nothing new here for us. So I'm going to go back, and Q is telling us why he left that link there. He said 113,000 plus suppressed new views in less than 24 hours. Your voice is spreading, Q. So what he's saying here, and if you know, some of you may do YouTube videos, I don't know, but if you do, you will know that they're messing around with those of us that have anything on YouTube. And the same thing Q is saying here. They've suppressed, because they know everything, they can tell that there's 113,000 plus suppressed view counts. And you can see that in my videos. I've noticed that people will comment, they'll say, how can you have this many comments but only this many views? How is that possible? How can somebody comment on something they haven't even viewed yet? And that's right. I mean, they're pointing out an anomaly, which really isn't an anomaly. It's everyday life to those of us that are speaking anything conservative. That's what they do. They'll knock off your number of subscribers. They'll knock off your views, whatever it takes. That's what they do. And so Q is calling our attention to that and saying, look, you know, they might be trying to suppress the views and make it seem like this isn't as popular as it actually is, but your voice is spreading, Q. So I like that because I just do. Because I feel like it's applicable to myself and other people that are trying to spread this message as well. It's saying, look, you know what? Don't get so disheartened because there's 113,000 plus suppressed views on this, but your voice is spreading. People have seen it. Don't be discouraged. So there you go. Now let's go up to the next Q post with with this, and it has the, you know, a picture of a lady falling out of a car, and somebody has named this Democrats and this Christine Ford as if after their, and it says 10 minutes before Kavanaugh, and somebody had put after, but somebody has scratched that out and said before. 10 minutes before Kavanaugh is confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, you know, they're ditching Christine Ford. And now underneath it has the breaking 911 that we looked at yesterday. Christine Blasey Ford has no further plans to pursue her sexual misconduct allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, according to her attorneys. And that was ABC News said that. And underneath, there's a link here. And Q says, walk away. Hashtag walk away, Q. Now let's go look at the link he's provided. I'm going to close a couple of these so my computer doesn't slow down. All right. Peggy Grand. Dianne Feinstein shows her true colors in the Kavanaugh fight. Oh, I think she does. I would agree. Senator Dianne Feinstein had a long and illustrious career with moments of great leadership, but in the recent Kavanaugh hearings, the California Democrat exposed herself as a standard partisan hack, leading the charge into an unnecessary and losing battle. As a result, she showed that she and her party are desperate and power-hungry, but are not champions for women. Growing up in California, I have known of Senator Feinstein all my adult life. In fact, she had a condo in Los Los Angeles, right across the street from where Ronald Reagan's office was and where I worked for 10 years. We crossed paths on several occasions, and even though we were on different sides of the political aisle, I always found her to be cordial, measured, a voice of reason and common sense that could be relied upon, even if her ultimate conclusion or vote was one I didn't agree with or support. What happened to that Dianne Feinstein? After so many admirable years of public service, how did she drift so far out of the mainstream? How did she lose the plot? Most Dems eventually do, I thought, but I thought she was the exception to that. I was clearly wrong, and I'm deeply disappointed in her, as are many Californians. But this Judicial Committee hearing was never about justice for Dr. Ford or about hearing and validating her claims. It was about creating a narrative of negativity against Judge Kavanaugh, fabricating a cloud of suspicion and doubt that would hopefully fog the room and make it impossible to distinguish fact from fiction, and cause chaos to the point the Judiciary Committee would throw up their hands and say, "It's just not worth it. Let's go with someone else." Thank goodness they didn't. This was never about Kavanaugh either. It was about anyone Trump nominated that would potentially tip the court to the right. Yet the Democrats wouldn't have blinked an eye over appointing a fifth liberal judge if they had been given the chance. They would have gloated that this is the process and the precedent, and Republicans just need to accept it. But that never works the other way. The confirmation had to be derailed by the Democrats at any expense, even at the expense of a poor woman whose testimony was the center of a circus, not at the center of justice. I agree with that, and I'm not going to go on and read all of this because I think that we know all of this about Feinstein, no doubt. And Q appropriately puts underneath, walk away. And of course, that is aimed toward any Democrats who I doubt are listening, but one never knows. I do know that there are several former Democrats that have walked away that listen. They may not agree with all my views, but they still listen, and I can respect them, and we can respect each other. We don't have to agree on everything. So let's go up to the next, and it is this with several links to it, and it says, "Do you believe in coincidences? Data provided to the Democratic Party affiliate to target voters for November 6th election? Win at all costs?" Q. Now, his questions are never really questions, and so no, I don't believe in coincidence. And yes, this data was provided to the Democratic Party affiliates to target voters for November 6th, absolutely. And win at all costs? Yes, that is their motto, but unfortunately, mottos do not always carry that much weight. Just because they believe in winning at all costs does not believe that they will win at all costs. Sometimes the cost of winning is far beyond which you can pay. So that is the case here. Now let's look. This is the New York Times link, and we're going to look at that. And of course, I'm not going to read all of this, but this is about the Facebook security breach, which exposed accounts of 50 million users. And we already know that. That's not anything new for us. This was written September 28th, 2018. So perhaps this is an even newer breach. Facebook, already facing scrutiny over how it handles the private information of its users, said on Friday that an attack on its computer network had exposed the personal information of nearly 50 million users. The breach, which was discovered this week, was the largest in the company's 14-year history. So I guess this is a new breach. It's not like breaches are anything new to Facebook. They are the breach makers. The attackers exploited a feature in Facebook's code to gain access to user accounts and potentially take control of them. Oh, I could see how the Democrats could use this. Absolutely. The news could not have come at a worse time for Facebook. It has been buffeted over the last year by scandal, from revelations that a British analytics firm got access to the private information of up to 87 million users, to worries that disinformation on Facebook has affected elections and even led to deaths in several countries. Senior executives have testified several times this year in congressional hearings where some lawmakers suggested that the government will need to step in if the social network is unable to get tighter control of its service. On Friday, regulators and lawmakers quickly seized on the breach to renew calls for more oversight. This is another sobering indicator that Congress needs to step up and take action to protect the privacy and security of social media users. Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia and one of Facebook's most vocal critics in Congress, said in a statement, a full investigation should be swiftly conducted and made public so that we can understand more about what happened. So let me see here. I think Mark Zuckerberg says they're taking it seriously. Well, of course. What's he gonna say? Anyway, so Q is asking us, was this done to help the Democrats? To target voters? I don't know. I think that's what he's trying to tell us. Now, this, let me see where the other one is. This is a Wall Street Journal article, which I can't read, but I did cut out here so we could at least see what it was about. And it's this: Google exposed user data, feared repercussions of disclosing to public. Google opted not to disclose to users its discovery of a bug that gave outside developers access to private data. It found no evidence of misuse. Google exposed the private data of hundreds of thousands of users of the Google Plus social network and then opted not to disclose the issue this past spring, in part because of fears that doing so would draw regulatory scrutiny and cause reputational damage, according to the people briefed on the incident and documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Now, this is absolute conjecture on my part, and I want to preface it that way. But I am wondering if all these breaches in Google and Facebook is being called by the malware called Red October. Is that part of the double meaning for Red October? Is it? I don't know. It could be. It could very well be. Now, I'm just saying, there's something. It's a bug. They've already said it's a bug of some sort. Well, isn't that what the malware and bug, those are two names for the same thing? It's not that much of a stretch, in my mind. Now, perhaps you're saying, okay, well, you've taken leave of your senses. I don't think it means that at all. But I do. I think that we're going to find that this has been caused by the Red October malware that is linked to the Chinese, because that's two, Facebook and Twitter. Now let's find the last one that Q wants us to see, because it's interesting indeed, because it's not just contained to Facebook and Twitter and Facebook and Google, because here we go with Twitter. Look at this. Twitter says bug may have exposed some direct messages to third-party developers. They use the same language. It's a bug. Well, what is the bug? I think it's Red October. That's exactly what I think. And I think that this bug is helping the Democrats. That's what I think. Now, I could be wrong. And I prefaced it by saying that this is just a supposition. But Q is telling us that, because we know his questions are not questions. So he's telling us that these breaches of Google, Facebook, and Twitter are related, right? He wouldn't have put them all together like that. And he's saying, do you believe in coincidences? No, I don't. They all had breaches caused by a bug. Well, what was the bug? Red October. And he's saying data provided to Democrat Party affiliate to target voters for November 6th. So someone is interfering in our elections. This bug, perhaps, it's not that big a stretch, I don't think. But I'll see what you guys say. I will listen to reason. I have before listened to reason. So, but that's exactly what I think. I think that this bug that has come over, that they stopped. I do believe that Q and his team stopped whatever it was and the servers from spreading. But I do believe that it is out there, and I think that perhaps this breach in Twitter and Facebook and Google are caused by this Red October. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. At least it's something we can consider. We just don't know that it's fact yet. That's all. Now, it says here in the next post, it says, are the Fisa redactions legal? And this has been provided to us by Q, so we can't have any hope of reading this. So let's go out to a bigger view of it. And here we are. And we can see it much bigger here. And this is a post from 10/8. The one that we just looked at. Why? Well, actually, I don't know if we have looked at this yet. Anyway, it says, why not? It says The Hill opinion. White House, FBI smoking gun redactions protected political embarrassment. Okay, so we have looked at this. It said, why not? If true, Democrats do not want DECLAS to prove POTUS was colluding with Russia. They don't want it declassified because this way they can say, oh, well, yeah, those redactions right there prove that POTUS was colluding with Russia, but they prove no such thing. Why are the Democrats opposed to declassification if what they say is true? Well, we already know that because it incriminates some of them. A declassification would prove evidence versus POTUS to obtain FISA warrant. Why the block? Define projection. See article above. Redactions made to protect exposing the real truth. And that's true. Logical thinking. McCabe memos. Source. New York Times. Rod Rosenstein wearing a wire. Sessions. Subpoena. McCabe memos. Delivery to House. Baker testimony to House. What was learned? Next up, Rod Rosenstein testimony to the House. Locked and loaded. Q. Now, beneath, it says, remember this post, this was from September 15th, and it gave us Executive Order 13526, which was actually enacted by Obama, oddly enough, but this gave classifications, prohibitions, and limitations. In no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be classified in order to prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. And we know that's exactly why they want to keep it redacted, right? So he said this on September 15th and again on September 18th. The same thing. And he said, reminder that Hussein did this executive order. So it's interesting that the executive order that Hussein did is going to be used against them because, and then of course, this article that we went to and we've already read, it says that means the redaction of footnote 43 has more to do with political embarrassment than with national security, and that should concern us all. And indeed, it does. And here is the actual executive order taken right straight from the government's page, and it's the president Executive Order 13526, classified national security information. And, of course, there you have now, therefore, I, Barack Obama, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. Well, he never abided by that before, did he? But anyway, we see right here, it says, prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. So are the FISA redactions legal? No, they're not. They're not legal. They were not done in accordance to what the law is, that redactions cannot be done to prevent embarrassment to a person, an organization, or an agency. And they were. So, no, they're not legal. And therefore, they must be unredacted, if that's a word, which I don't think it is. All right. So there we go there. That is that post. And here we are up at the next one. And it says, is this part of, I think it's part of this post. Maybe not, though. Perhaps not. No, I don't think it is. I think this is all one post, if I am not mistaken. And I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Here we are at the next post here, and it says, report. Google hid user data breach from public out of fear Congress would take action. Now, we've already looked at this, and we're not going to go out and look at this Breitbart one, because that's exactly what it's talking about, is that Google hid user data from the public out of fear Congress would take action. And Q has actually, he has verified this, because in reference to this, Q says, court order to preserve all data sent to Google. Now, he's asking a question. He's telling us that there has been a court order to preserve all data sent to Google. That's really good news. I mean, that's really good news. Think Google plus Gmail, etc. Communications cleanup, the more you know. Q. Now, I don't know, when he's saying court order to preserve all data sent to Google, if he's talking about the Democrats did this so that they could clean up all their communications before anybody got a hold of it, or that the Democrats did this to preserve the communications of the Democrats so that they're caught in their own trap, which the second one is what I hope he's saying, personally. So there you go. So all data that's sent to Google is being preserved by court order. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, you have to admit that things are heating up here. And this week is going to prove very fruitful indeed, I think, for our side. That's what I think. Now, have I been wrong before? No, I've never been wrong before. Not ever. Yes, of course I have. But I think that it's based in logic. I don't think that I'm just, spouting off for the sake of spouting off, like, oh, I think this is going to happen. I think that's going to happen. No, I think based on what I'm seeing here, this is all good news. So that's it for this evening. Anyway, it's 10:08 right now, p.m. Eastern Time, and I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I do thank you for listening to me. Make sure, if you want to be subscribed, that you stay subscribed, because, well, there's funny things that go on. And also hit that bell notification, and you'll be notified of every new email. So I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe, stay well, and I will talk to you very soon.